call you Richard?
Yeah, you can call me Richard.
Okay.
And we should be live in a bit. Yeah. All right. All right, we are live. So let's see if everything is working. All right, good morning, good evening, good night, everybody. Welcome back to another The Not So Fashion Talk Show. And today I have a special guest to talk about past lives, regression, and just have a talk about and try to understand a little bit. I just recently wrote my book about my depression, and it's out for sale on Amazon. And one of the things that I did with Andarta, our guest today, it's past life regression. I met her in 2019, I think. And since then, I've been using as a guide. So we are here to have a cool conversation with Andarta. Welcome to my The Not So Fashion Talk Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you and get to work with you a little bit. So first of all, I know on your bio, there's a lot of like,
a lot
spiritually
of stuff.
speaking, you have a lot of like very cool labels and things. So let's go from there. Let's tell everybody who is Andarta.
Okay. All right. Well, I am a professional psychic in the Denver metro area, but I have clients all around the world. Actually, I have some in Germany and in other places, as well as all around the United States. I am a clairvoyant and a clairaudient, as well as an empath. So I use those abilities while I'm doing readings with tarot readings. I'm also a Reiki master, so I do a lot of Reiki healing, and I also attune people to Reiki, which Reiki is universal healing energy that was developed in the 19th century in Japan. And I'm also, let's see, what else? I have my PhD in medieval literature, so I am also an English professor. So I have a lot of background in the Arthurian legends, and so that's why my business, Psychic Healers of Avalon, is centered around that, because that is my main focus of healing is through Avalon. I also do past life regressions, which is what we're going to be talking about today. This is something I have been working on doing, still figuring out for about, I've been doing readings for about 30 years now. So past life regressions, about 25 years. And then just another thing I have to add on to my website pretty soon is I am training to become a death doula. So that is yet another thing that I'm going to be doing, which is more of somebody that stays with somebody as they're crossing over. So sort of like a birth doula is there to bring a baby into. Mm-hmm, exactly. So that is something that I'm currently working on right now.
And you're helping pushing it out.
Well, so I wouldn't say pushing. I'd be like gently holding their hand.
Yeah, you have the transition in and the transition out.
Exactly. Yes. So I think that covers all of the different things on my website. But I just, I'm very passionate about people learning about their past lives because I think that it is, that is your soul. That is who you have been time and time again. If people don't believe in past lives, then it's sort of a moot point. But many, many people are really sort of awakening to, it's like a realization of, oh my gosh, I really feel like I have been this type of person or lived in this area of the world or experienced this in many different capacities and ways people uncover this information, usually by accident, that people stumble upon these things. But I think that it's really important for people to learn about themselves. I mean, how are you going to learn about anything else in the world if you don't even know who you are and who you have been? So
it's funny because I did actually my first past life regression, I think was somewhere like 2012 and 2013, because like I was going to therapy, but something was telling me like there's something more that I should investigate, not just, you know, like the real stuff with my depression and things like that. Like I said, I always say, and you can read on my book, I'm fucked up in a way that it took me years. And like one of the things is like I started tapping into that, and it's weird because some of the experiences are like, it's like you really feel like, okay, this, I mean, it makes so much sense in your head when you tap into that. But it's something that a lot of people are scared of it.
They are. A lot of people are scared. You know, I get a lot of people, if they're just recently onto this new path of learning about themselves and, you know, growing spiritually, they only want to know about good past lives. Or, you know, when they were Cleopatra. It's like, I don't know how many people have been Cleopatra, you know, but you know, it's just one of those things that people are afraid of seeing anything negative. And I think it's a lot about self-judgment that people don't want to, especially our society today, that is very much of, I feel that there's a lot of blame placing in our society of, well, it's everybody else's fault that these things happen and it's not my fault at all, and blah, 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 blah. You know, you've been working on your depression and you've been looking at, okay, so what is it about myself? And I would not say, Richard, that you are all fucked up. I don't. You know, everybody has their own shadows, their own, you know, however you want to describe them, shadows, demons, you know, negative energy, whatever it is. But I see it as, you know, well, first, it can absolutely, I always look at this life first. Okay. So if people are having major depression or anxiety or issue, you know, whatever it is, I first look at this lifetime, just because we obviously have a lot of baggage just with this life. And yet, especially cycles. People are always saying to me, I just don't understand why I do the same thing over and over again. I think it's going to turn out differently, but it's not. Or I don't understand why I keep getting into the same types of relationships or what. And that's usually an indication that this is a past life cycle or karmic loop that you're in. And the reason why you're in that loop is that you're not facing whatever the life lesson is. And once you actually take that time to stop and say, okay, so what is the life lesson in this life here? Then you can start unpacking it, start healing yourself. And then you can keep on uncovering. And it's sort of like we just have many, many layers. And it's you know, it's just starting with the most, obviously the most, it can be the most difficult. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that the really difficult ones are really, really buried. But a lot of people are afraid of finding out who they were. You know, and this is, you know, I talk to a lot of people. I warn them before we do the regression. They do the regression and then we talk about it again afterwards, because they're like, oh, because, you know, if you uncover that you were a horrible person in a past life, that is very difficult to face. And you can carry around a lot of guilt with, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was that person. And if you uncover a past life that you were a victim of some sort, it's very easy to fall into victimhood and be, you know, forever, you know, in that energy, in that cycle. And so I always remind people, I tell them beforehand, but that's always more of like a mental, oh, okay, that's a really good idea. And once they've done the regression, they're like, holy cow, I can't believe that happened. And then it's like, okay, let's not fall into either guilt or victimhood or any of those negative energies. Let's look at what the lesson is of that past life. Yeah. Because that's ultimately what it is for, because you are not that person. You are not that person that was before. Your soul absolutely, once you release it, once you release that, it's like a key, once you put that key into that, keyhole, and you start unlocking, then it's like your soul remembers. And it's interesting when people have come back from regressions. I mean, I've been doing so many past life regressions. It's been interesting that people come back and they're like, I was this ancient woman that had so much arthritis and my body hurts now. And it's because our soul, once we start uncovering, remembering who we were, that this physical body, this meat suit, is sort of reflects what it is that person was like. And I mean, I've uncovered when I had, like an arm amputated, and it felt like, it was really weird how it was like, it was not there. And then I came back and this part was all tingly. And so that sometimes can freak people out until you start getting back into this body again. But it is a matter of facing who you've been, good or bad, yeah. And oftentimes people get so like disappointed if they come back and they saw that they were just like a peasant that was just eating food and they had family. And it's like, okay, hold on to that. That's actually really, really good, because that was probably a very positive past life, even though it would have maybe been, simpler. But a lot of people want to see when they are in power positions, when they are wealthy, when they are whatever. And we all have been in those positions. That's something that people don't think about, but we all have been in these different positions. And it's a matter of what did you do with that power, with that wealth, with that whatever. And if you abuse that power, maybe that's what you are fixing this time around. A lot of karmic debt, a lot of, issues that you may be facing now could be because you're needing to make amends to somebody or somebody's. And that's where we get into, so we start getting more complicated. So we start with ourselves, and then, as we start looking, okay, so we actually have soul circles. Our society, Hollywood, makes things so simplistic and totally not how it is, of having a soulmate. We have many soulmates. We have a group of souls that we gather together lifetime after lifetime. We gravitate towards each other. And you can identify that person often immediately of, I feel like I've known you before.
That was how when Luke was born.
Yes, exactly.
I know you, man. And
like,
I got your back, whatever you need to learn. That was the feeling that I got. And that's what it kind of like freaked me out at first because of my trauma, because I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
But you're right. It's like, sometimes it's like, you just know.
Right. You just know. If you're both, like adults or, older or something like that, and you shake hands, oftentimes if there's an electric spark, like a shock, then that can also be an indication that you have known each other before. It's just, these are just all different things that I've uncovered over the years of, oh, that's a weird little thing. And then it's like, oh, that happened again. And yes. And okay, so I've known that person before. But soulmates are not all romantic. That's maybe 5 or 10% that turn out to be romantic at any given time. The people in our soul circles, they are our best friends. They are our comrades at war. They are our father, son. They are our enemies. That's another thing that's really interesting is sometimes we are absolutely at odds with each other, and other times we are really in harmony with each other. And but these people come into our lives to show us another lesson. And sometimes it can be that, like I was saying before, that karmic debt. Maybe there is somebody in particular that you've met that you need to fix a karmic debt from a past life or 2 or 3 in order to release that, or to continue on, or to heal, or whatever it is. I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah, those things are so interesting, because like when you look even on the scientific side of depression, they all say it's a chemistry, right?
Right.
So if there is a chemistry and our souls are energy, it will make sense that also that part of past life, it kind of will interfere with it, because it's energy and you carry on with it. Right. One thing which I agree with you, is like a lot of people think that, like, I don't know, everybody's afraid of the dark side, but the darker it is, the brighter the light it is. So it's kind of like sometimes everybody's gonna have that, and it's exactly what I said. It's what you do with it. Right. And that's one thing I tell people is like, anger is a very good energy if you do something with it.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You can do
something stupid, of course it's gonna be bad. But it's such a strong energy that if you know how to use it properly and channel it, it's kind of like, it makes a huge difference.
Right.
And
exactly.
it can change. It can make it changes instead of just breaking stuff down. It's like, no,
that's right. I mean, and we've been seeing that a lot in the past couple of years, especially with all the social injustices that are really surfacing. This is not the things that we are experiencing. And I'm not saying that, this is what we deserve or anything, but it really feels, from all of the things that I've been doing readings about and talking to people and everything like that, it feels like, we are on this verge. We're at this crossroads as a species, as humanity, that we can totally move forward, become more, become whole. Become whole. Exactly. I honestly feel that we totally, in ancient times, were telepathic. We utilized all of our brain instead of just, a percentage, and some people even less than that they use. I think that, we are at that crossroads of potential. And that's why I find it so important to just keep on with, what you're doing, what I'm doing, anybody that's really trying to help make a positive change, and showing people that yes, you can make that difference. You can make that change.
I think that we as species, we hit a point that we no longer can live without a purpose. Meaning, like, you kind of have to face your soul, or the story's gonna repeat itself again.
Right.
That's the way I see it. Is either we go back to same old crap, or right now we have on our hands, like the meaning, like Hugh, I think, is almost a collective dark soul shadow that we are going through.
Yes.
And as a collective, we need to, and the way I feel, and I'm not into conspiracy, but the way I feel, there is some people kind of like, no, let's go back to the old. And then we are in that verge of like,
well, and the people that are really wanting to stay with the older, and not everything the old is bad. Okay. I want to point that out. But people that are driven by fear, and that's where conspiracy theories really come from, is when people are driven by fear, then they're going to keep on collecting more people in their environment that are of that same energy. And I really honestly feel that the more people really start unpacking themselves, as in doing past life regressions, really trying to figure out who they were, then the more we're going to be releasing any racism, sexism, things like that, because it's like, oh, I was a so-and-so in that continent at that time. And I was a so-and-so, so honestly, the differences that we see in our society right now are all based on, well, this is who I am right here and now. And so therefore I'm judging you based on who I am right now. And most people will not move past that. Most people will not move past that because that they are safe and they feel comfortable in just that identity, in that identity. And racism, sexism, all of the isms can also absolutely be taught, family, in many different ways. But I really do feel that if you really sort of like open yourself up to seeing who else you might have been, and the challenges that you might have faced, and that's where the good and bad really comes in. Seeing how you were awesome in a different skin, how you were awesome in a different whatever, and also the persecutions that you may have experienced. If you are very much very racist, sexist, whatever this time around, if you were to see, oh my gosh, I was this, that might change your perspective on how you treat other people. I really feel that way. So I think it's enlightenment ultimately of, the reason why we should uncover it. And it's not an ego trip. Some people come to me and they absolutely are looking for ego trips. The ones that are wanting to see that they are Cleopatra, right? They want to see that, and I also have a lot of people ask me, well, why do we have to have sadness or sad past lives or poverty in our past lives? Honestly, and it's not a yay poverty or yay illness or anything like that, but if we all always are in a state of perfection, which none of us are right now, then we would never recognize, anything else. The horrible things that we all endure, and yet we still move on. Those are the things that teach us, to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I usually say that the dark side is actually your friend.
Absolutely.
You can kind of learn from it and, be different.
Yes.
It's not even be better or worse. It's be different.
Right.
Whatever that might be, that might bring you another lesson, but I also think for example, when we talk about inclusion and stuff like that, I think the moment we realize that we all have a soul, I think things change.
Yes.
Because even if you don't do past life regression, the more you realize, okay. And then I think you start respecting people in a different way of okay, there got to be a reason for that and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's easier to talk instead of being reactive to it. Right.
Absolutely. And so, there's the different types of soulmates that you can have that I've been, just uncovering. Obviously, the romantic. I tend to get a lot of young girls asking me that they want to find their twin flames, and so I have to have that little conversation with them of, well, do you actually understand what a twin flame is? So a twin flame is basically in centuries ago, whenever this happened, there was an event that a soul was traumatized so badly that it actually split in two. And so then it's a half of a soul. And so that's why I say to it's almost always young women. I'm like, so are you feeling that you're only half of a soul then? Are you feeling like so incomplete that you have to have another person, but then that sort of breeds, codependency in whoever they
Which
encounter.
a lot of empaths are codependent.
Yes.
That's one of the symptoms.
Yes.
It is that. So it kind of like, but let's be honest, like, what is what are the chances of a soul splitting? Like, it gotta be like such a huge traumatized. And I think sometimes like the new age come with this, and then that's when people like, oh, I don't feel whole. It's not because of me, it's because my soul's split it or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, just look, I mean, I'm a historian, my focus is the medieval period. So let me just say that there's so many horrible things that humans have done to each other over the centuries, that I can totally see people's souls splitting in half, quite honestly. It's just, some people just don't, they don't quite understand all the different terminology, and they're just seeking something, but good Lord, I mean, my book was about the witchcraft trials and just all of the torment and horrible things. So many people, they just think of the Salem witchcraft trials, and and it is very sad that 41 people died in Salem, Massachusetts. However, about 500,000 people were killed throughout Europe for witchcraft, when it was very political in various different ways. And so, I think that there are, looking at the Holocaust, looking at, just all the different ways.
But my question is like, where is the, like
how does it happen? And that's, I think that honestly, that happens once the body dies. Once the body dies, then if the soul, because we have spirits and things like that, if it's that traumatic, that maybe the soul does absolutely split when it's, dying or something like that.
But you know what, it's funny, the Native Americans, they have a philosophy that each person had 3 souls, I think.
Yeah. And the soul retrieval, and this is a whole other different thing. I absolutely respect the Native American belief systems. Yes. I just have, from my own perspective, this is just what I have experienced and what I know. Just the same thing with which this is a totally different topic, but I teach an animal magic class to tap into your animal guides and things and I know a lot of Native Americans believe that you have 9 animal totems. I feel that you have one that is basically your core energy, and then you have all these other guides that come forward. So because my animal totem is the bear, and so in a lot of situations, other animal guides come forward that are not the bear, because I got the bear down pat, quite honestly. It's like, it's like a mouse or something that I was, I got to be the mouse here. Okay. Because not everything requires being the bear. But anyway, so
it's funny because on my band here, which is a one-man band, the drummer and the bass and the guitar, each one, and the vocal, each one of them, when they connect, it becomes one. That's my idea of explaining. And I totally believe with you. I think we all have one core with many others, guides or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And when I do regressions, I have my clients, it's more of a shamanic type of regression. I don't do the hypnoses. I can't just sit there and especially when I'm at different conventions and psychic fairs and stuff, and people see that I have past life regressions on my banner. I'm like, well, but I can sit here and tell you a little bit about your past lives, but we're not doing a regression right here. Because I'm not going to have you lay down for an hour with 100 people walking around and doing a regression. It
doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. Yeah. We need to have my office where it's nice and quiet and we have that space. But it's more of a deep deep, regression meditation, that you meet a specific spirit guide that takes you to, see what it is that you're ready for. And some people, they go in and they want to see a specific past life, and then they come back and they're like, well, why did I see these ones instead of this? And I'm like, well, maybe you're not ready for it yet.
Exactly.
Because sometimes, and I've had past lives come forward that I got one little blip of, a one little scene of it. And then 5 years later, I get the next part because I was not ready for that next part. Yeah. So,
do you know what is funny? The one that I did review, one of them, I don't know if you remember, but I kind of show up in a fight, in a gladiator fight. And then it was just a glimpse and then boom, I got out. And so I still, up to today, I had no idea what happened after that because I just couldn't see it.
Right.
But I just saw that I was there. And then from there, I went to another time. It was like 1920s. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I was already old. So I was like, but I saw that first glimpse in there. I was like, what the heck is going on?
Right. Well, and that's not uncommon at all. I have had people that have only seen, some people, they go in, and I've never had a client see from birth until death. We don't have that much time, but it's usually a glimpse of something. Whether or not it's their death or not, sometimes that's not the important lesson that they need to see. But just sometimes it's just one life that they see a whole bunch of detail, and sometimes they see 5 different ones that at first don't seem to connect at all. And yet when we started unpacking the meanings of each one of those past lives, we started seeing the connections to maybe this is what the karmic line is for these past lives, is this is the lesson for that past life or these past lives or something. And so just journaling is the most important thing. I always tell people, I've always told you, right, make sure to write down everything. Dreams are very important as well. And I think that you've had a lot of dreams, right?
Well, my book, it's all about dreams.
Right.
It starts with a dream that a recurring dream that I used to have, that I was getting like smooshed, and I was really small. Nobody would listen. I would scream and nobody would listen. And everything started getting bigger. And I'm not going to say the end of the book, but in the end, I kind of like everything connected about that dream. But in the middle of the book, I have other dreams that it ended up happening. And one of them was the Iron Man that 13 years later came together. So it's kind of, I totally believe in that. And I mean, I don't think I can say it's a belief. I can say that I fully trust, because it's what happened to me, and like it's the experience that I had, and that's why I try to put it in the book, because I think it can help a lot of people, especially this younger generation, because it seems like this younger generation, like we talked, like it's an evolution process, and it seems like this younger generation, they have a much more facility to assess those things, but they don't know what it is, and then they think they're too scared of it. Right. And that's where a lot of shit's going on, because they're so are telling something, but society in general is saying the totally opposite. Right. And,
and it's that, and that's why where a lot of the social injustices really surface, right? Is that this younger generation, it's really interesting to still be teaching. I've been teaching in the college level for almost 20 years now, and just the difference in just the students, obviously. I mean, I still have, like returning students and whatever, but just the 18, I'm getting older every year, and they're still 18 to 20, and they're a lot more open-minded, a lot more fluid with a lot of different beliefs, and they just don't know where to take it.
And they don't know how to access either.
Right. Yeah.
I have a theory for that. which is one that's what helped me. It's I really think that there's two things that numb us from our soul. The number one is food, and the other one is religion. I think the food, it takes the connection out of the land itself. Doesn't matter what diet you do, vegan, vegetarian, whatever. If you're eating processed food, you're cutting that connection with the land, period. And that's one way to numb. The other way to numb is the fear of religion, of you assessing that, because that's one of the things that and that's one of the things I actually want to ask you, because your story in childhood is quite interesting. But like I was afraid of even accessing that, and I'm here like at 41 years old now, and since I met you, I've been open up a little bit and studying and getting over the fear. And you suggested me a book that started teaching me a lot of things. And then it started like, okay, I'm not fucking crazy. It makes sense. And then I started to meet people. Oh yeah, that happened with me, and this and this and this. And then you start connecting the dots. But up until a few years ago, I was like, I'm just insane. Fuck it. That's it. I'm going to burn in hell.
Well, but if you don't fit, exactly, if you don't fit into the box of mainstream society that a lot of the mainstream religions place us in, then we're absolutely I mean, people honestly would see me as crazy, or mentally ill or whatever. I'm sure that a lot of people do. Even though I have 3 higher education degrees, I hear people talking to me that are not here in the physical. And so, some people ask me, so you're a psychic? And I'm like, well, that's what the voices tell me. But that's a
great answer.
I mean, so what exactly is crazy, and going back to the Native Americans, I mean, they actually see a lot of the people that are put into the mental institutions in our society, that they actually are a lot more open to, the spirit realm than mainstream society. So I think
that's why people use drugs, because they want to shut that off. It's very hard, because sometimes you see something coming and then you tell the person like, hey, be careful. Person doesn't be careful. The shit happens. And then you're like, fuck, man, I knew it the whole fucking time. I tried to warn, and then you carry the guilt. But, and then what a lot of people do is they go to drugs, including food. Processed food is a type of drug, like sugar. So they go to drugs, and you numb that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is why I think it's sad. And like we talked in the beginning, we have a potential right now of like, listen, you're not fucking crazy, but let's all of us trying to learn to access that knowledge.
Right.
And start using to guide your life.
Right. Well, and so I don't remember if I've ever told you that I actually taught in prison. I wasn't in prison. The guys were in prison. Did I tell you that I used to do this?
You told me a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this was back when I lived in Florida, when I was going to Florida State for my PhD. And, so I was there, and first off, and this is directly related once again to past lives and karma. When I first went in there, and I had to take a guy with me because it was an all male prison, of course, so I can't go in by myself, which I'm totally fine with. But I don't beat around the bush. I'm pretty blunt, and I'm sitting in a room full of murderers and rapists and thieves. And I said, so give me one good reason why I should come here every Saturday and teach you. And my friend's like, oh, like, what did you just do? But they all sat and they thought about it for a minute. And then the one that was a lot more vocal, he said, so I don't do this again, so that I learn from this. Because I told them, like, some of you are never leaving this facility alive. So why should I bother? And they wanted to fix their karma. And I'm like, that is the reason. That is exactly the reason why I will come. And so for 2.5 years before I left Florida, I was there every Saturday teaching them meditation and ritual and and past lives, a lot of past life stuff. and that's also how I had to learn how to teach without any tools. I mean, us pagans, we had some really cool shit, you know, like athames and staffs, and I can't take any of that stuff into a prison. So I had to teach them all without any tools. And exactly, yes, we got really cool shit, you know. And at the end of this time, and so let me also just preface this with, you know, the chaplain and the warden really did not want us there. You know, they did not want pagans in their prison, but they had to legally. And at the end of that 2.5 years, when I was moving away, the chaplain, he asked us, he's like, "What are you teaching these guys?" And I said, "What?" And he says, "These are the best behaved prisoners in this entire facility." Wow. He said, "They do not get into trouble. They do not get put into solitary confinement. During lunchtime, they meditate outside." He says, "Sometimes I see them just like walking calmly around, but they don't get into fights anymore." And even one of the guards became a pagan because he saw the big change in them. And I told him, like, it is all about personal responsibility and your own karma.
Yeah.
It is all about looking within. And if you're constantly living life, seeing, oh, you know, God up in the clouds watching me, am I going to get away with this, whatever it is that I'm doing? Oh, I got away with it this time. Oh, I didn't get away with it this time. So I just got to pray for forgiveness and then I could do it all over again. You know, that is not his way. Well, and that's very childlike. I feel that it's very childlike to just constantly be in that cycle of, oh, did I get caught this time? Was I bad this time? When in fact, you know, with the teachings of, okay, so look at your shit. Look at who you've been. Look at what you're doing now. Why are you here? You know, that is all about personal responsibility. Yeah. Facing what your issues are. And nobody is perfect. Absolutely nobody is perfect. Some people are born with more crap than others. And some people have had a perfect life and then they still are just like completely shallow people. It's what you do with it, right? But, you know, living life that you're just going to, whether or not you're going to get caught by a God up in the sky, you know, I think that is just, you know, it's a very childlike mentality. That's why our earth is the way that it is, of just constantly, oh, who cares? It's not my thing. Who cares if, you know, we're destroying the earth? Who cares? Because it's not, you know, whatever. And, you know, you do need to take that responsibility. You do need to face your crap. You do need to, you know, and this also gets into suicide. And this is a very difficult topic that a lot of people struggle with. Yeah. I have talked people out of suicide when they were on that verge. And I have a very different perspective of suicide than most people because I'm pagan. I am not Christian. I do not see it as a sin. And I even just recently had a woman sit down at a psychic fair and ask me all about suicide because her husband had committed suicide. And I told her, I'm like, I don't see it as a sin. However, one, you're absolutely leaving behind all of these broken people because of what you know, that you took yourself out early. And whatever it is that you're running away from, you're going to have to face it again because of past lives, because of the next life that you're going to go into. And so, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm sick of this crap. I'm sick of having to, you know, face all of these challenges. I want to get this. I want to just figure it out and be done with it, you know, not, you know, playing around. And so, you know, and so that's just my perspective on, you know, death and suicide and things like that.
It's funny because, I mean, suicide, one of the theories that I don't know. You said that you're psychic, clairvoyance, and then clairaudience, which I want to ask that question after. But there's this guy. I don't think he's alive anymore. He's a medium from Brazil, and he once said that people that commit suicide sometimes they come back as special needs childs. to
Mm.
learn the stuff that they need to learn.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah.
It's so funny because when Luke was born, for some reason, like from strange reason, like I was very confused in the hospital, and then I said, like, what if he's the reincarnation of? And I said, Chorão, which is he's a singer, he's a rock singer, Brazilian rock singer that he passed away through drug usage, and he was very sensitive in this way and stuff like
Sure.
that. And he passed away from suicide. And then I said, like, what if he's the reincarnation of that guy?
Right.
And but out of no, like, I never have even heard that theory before. I came across this theory last year from a video that Carol sent me, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy, because my first thought was that, but like, of course I cannot prove, but when, like, especially in China, I think they come here to actually learn how to receive love.
Yes.
Meaning, I think suicide, you get to a point that you feel so worthless, so like at the bottom, that you have no love whatsoever, that you kill yourself. And okay, it's a free will, let's put it this way, it's your soul, but you come back to learn again. And when you come back to learn, I mean, if you come as a special needs child, I think your job, like, that child needs to receive a lot of love, because it's a very traumatized soul. That's the way, like, I thought. But
absolutely,
it's funny how certain things in my life happen that way. But
absolutely, and I think that, and I wouldn't put it past that Luke would have memories about who he's been. He may not be able to communicate it completely, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. But
which that's one of my questions, because I know, talking to you, I know there's something that started really early on in childhood, and you told me that same thing about your daughter. So can you explain? Well, first of all, you said you're psychic and clairvoyant. Is there any difference between shamanic and medium? Because I know there is.
Okay. So there's a lot of people ask me, "Are you a medium?" The term medium is a very specific term that is used when you've been trained a certain way, in certain paths, that you actually sometimes even allow the spirit to partially enter you or something like that. I see spirits. I sense spirits. I hear them. I don't allow them to come into me. I don't allow that.
So a medium, you can kind of channel the spirit to you and talk.
Right, exactly.
But shamanic doesn't do that. They work.
Well, a shaman could. I mean, ultimately, I mean, I think that a shaman, if they want to, they absolutely could. And there are shamans. There are shamans all around the world. It's not just Native American. They're found throughout the world. It's the shamans are the in between nature and humanity. They don't fit into either, and they are sort of like the they help both. So they're helping nature and they're helping people, and that's why they sort of can't be. No, that's why I often say, I joke. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a shaman, but at the same time, I live very much that type of hermetic life, that the more I help people, I have to keep certain boundaries to connect with spirits, to connect with nature. And if I'm constantly, being distracted by the muggle world, sort of like in Harry Potter, I just call them muggles, if I'm constantly distracted by the muggle world, then I am not hearing things as much. And so a lot of people ask me, well, how can I start hearing my spirit guides? I'm like, well, first off, unplug the headphones, take some time to be out in nature. We are such a distracted society. We distract ourselves. I mean, just how frustrated do people get if their page doesn't load immediately? You know, I mean, we have to have everything instantaneously. Fast food, fast entertainment, fast whatever's, you know, and that's why many people can't hear their spirit guides, because they are completely distracted. Exactly. And so, you know, there's many different types of psychics. Psychic is an umbrella term. So medium is one kind of a psychic. And the all the claras, they're all the different senses. So clairaudient is hearing, clairvoyant is the seeing, you know, so it's just all the different senses, you know, in that manner. And an empath is somebody, that can feel other people's emotions. I sometimes, when I do readings, I actually also feel people's physical pains, and physical sensations and things like that, depending on where I'm at and how open I am as to whether or not, I tap into that much. So those are all just different, and everybody's born with different levels of psychic abilities. It's just that we're taught by mainstream society that that's not real. That's not true. You can't do that. And, you know, and I was, you know, you were bringing up my childhood. I mean, that we don't have enough time in the day to talk about all the crazy there, but, you know, just being born in a very patriarchal society, very, very rigid fundamentalist belief systems that are definitely would put men above women. Psychic abilities, absolutely horrible, terrifying, even though I got that from my mother. That is seen as absolutely terrifying. And so, you know, and a part of my childhood was I would start remembering who I was. And so like, I remember very vividly being, you know, Romani, being a gypsy. I wrote poems about it, and yet I had to hide it because my family would lose it. I would get into so much trouble if they would have found anything like that. And so, you know, and kids, and this is something I always tell parents: when your child is between 4 and 6 years old, those are the best times that you're going to start getting information about who your child was. You know, so don't discount, you know, that's what a lot of parents say. Oh, sure, honey, you were a pilot, or, you know, but in fact, they probably were.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so just have a little notebook that you can jot down whenever your child starts talking about, oh, well, I was this person and this is what happened to me. And, you know, I mean, my daughter, when she was 4, poor girl, she had several abilities come in at right when she turned 4. It's really interesting. I've been, and I have so many books that I'm working on, and yet I have another one that I want to work on as far as how to raise a psychic child. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, ever since she was born, I've been teaching her how to use her abilities, and I found that, at least for girls, their psychic abilities are really interconnected with their hormone surges. And so when they hit certain ages, then they would sort of level up. And so when she turned 4, and that's also an age when they start having certain hormones, you know, surge in, she had both her, so her psychometry is where you hold an object and you get information about who owned it before, you know, things like that. So her psychometry kicked in, as well as her past lives, memories of her past lives, at least a couple different ones. And, you know, and we were, when I first started teaching and she was, you know, very young, I didn't have cable television or anything. We watched Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Pony. And so this child never saw anything gruesome or dramatic or anything horrible at all whatsoever. And yet when she was 4, you know, she was like the perfect child in daycare until one week. She just had a horrible, horrible week. And so, you know, and her teacher would pull me aside. She's like, oh, she's just so bad, or what? I'm like, what? I don't understand what's going on. And so then at the end of that week, I'm like, okay, so what's going on, honey? What's going on? And she said, well, I remember when I had my other mom, and then she got really nervous that I was going to get upset. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, honey. You just had a different mom before. And that's what's really important, is that you have to be open when your kid starts talking about this. Okay, sure. No, that's fine. And she's like, well, okay. So I was 6 years old.
Otherwise the person shut down in a
exactly.
Second.
Exactly.
That's what happened with me. The person would never talk about it.
Right. Exactly. So she had just turned 4, and she's like, I remember when I was 6 and she's like, and I said goodbye to my mom. Her name was Marge. And I walked to school. I was going to kindergarten, and and she talked about what outfit she wore and everything. And she said, and then there was, I was walking on the sidewalk, and a yellow car came up and hit me, and all these people were standing over me, and there was blood everywhere, and I died. And so that's why she was having such a horrible week, because every time they would lay down for nap time is when she was seeing that. Exactly. And so once we were able to talk about that, then she didn't have any more bad episodes at school, because I'd be like, okay, well, because she started trying to tell it to her teacher, and her teacher very I'm like, okay, honey, just talk to your mom, just talk to me about it. Okay. I'll understand. Okay. And so that's a really important thing with little kids, is just to let them know that they can tell you, no matter how traumatic. And like I said, she grew up on Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Pony. So it's not like I'm showing her television shows of children getting hit by cars or anything like that. Yeah. So that was very, very crystal clear of past life.
Yeah, it's funny. I can totally see that. And it's funny, like in the beginning of our interview, our talk, you mentioned like telepathy. And I'm totally on board with that, because I'm 100% sure that I actually wrote a few songs with Luke, like, just because sometimes it's like we get into the car and we create a song.
Yeah.
And it kind of like we go by feel, and I am feeling him, he's feeling me, and then we are creating. And I honestly, I'm positive, but it's something that I cannot physically prove it, but sure. I'm positive that I've done it, because sure. I mean, there's so many stories. I didn't put all in a book, of course, but there's so many stories that, like, right before something happened, I was already there. I already knew how to do certain things for him. Right. But I'm like, holy crap! It freaks you out at first, but
But you have to make sure to listen. And that's the really important thing, is that a lot of people are taught to shut that down, to not listen. And that's when they get into really bad situations, when you're not listening to your intuition, to your guides, whatever it is that you want to call it. That when you stop listening, that's when you really go into really bad situations. Yeah.
No, I'm every time I did not listen, something happened to make you listen again.
Right. Absolutely.
But my issue was that I never talked. That's where my depression came from, because I became scared of talking.
Sure.
And I think what you said, it's like, even if you're like, okay, this is crap, you need to listen to the child, or you need to listen to it. And so the person can feel heard, and they might just move on from there, but I think it's important.
But you and I were not in environments that we felt safe, or we were safe to talk about those type of things. That's just another difference. I mean, I think that we need to change our society in general, but all the time I would know stuff, and my spirit guides be like, do not tell your family, all the time. And usually I would listen, but every now and then I'd have to open my trap, and then, oh my gosh, then they're trying to cast the demons out of Amy and everything else. It was just never a fun situation. So I learned to keep information to myself, because it always ended poorly for me. So I think that, just people just staying open, and and it's not fun facing no,
lives
that were unpleasant in any way. And yet, that's the only way that we can ultimately heal, is to face all of the good and the bad, right? And so I think that that's honestly the moral of the story for past lives, for me at least, is that the more I help other people and myself to face their core self, their inner self, the more they're able to just open up and be an amazing person and have these abilities, and, and not be afraid anymore, and really conquer so much. So,
I mean, it is what it is, like you can't change the past,
right?
But, it's part of you, and
yes,
you need to face it. I can tell for experience. I've done many of past life regressions. I did like so many therapies, and I'm a Reiki master too. That's the only title that I know and I understand when you don't. The rest is like I said, I've been starting to explore my sensitivity in this sense. And it's been great. I mean, it's been great. But past life regression is not easy, but I think it's worth it.
I think so too. I really do. I think that everybody grows from it. And there's, growth and healing. No doctor will ever tell you that the healing process is a pleasant sensation. If you break your arm, the healing process of your arm healing is not a pleasant sensation. It's not until it's been healed that it feels better. Yeah. Right. So
to write my book, it took me 5.5 years. And it was probably the most painful thing that I ever done in my entire life. I guarantee you that. It was insane. And thank goodness I live in Colorado, where weed is legal, because it was like probably one of the worst pains I ever felt. I'll be honest.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
It was way worth it. And, I think it's, like you said, it's going within. It's like Lemmy said, like Lemmy has a quote, like, I don't care about the devil or God. Whatever I do, I take care of it.
Right.
I face it. Yeah. And I think that's what it is.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree.
Spirituality.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the difference between, being stuck in a very rigid religion and being open to spirituality.
Yes.
So,
well, that was an amazing talk. I really appreciate it. I don't want to take too much time of you.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It's been 1 hour already.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I do appreciate it.
No, maybe we should do this sometime again.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we only scratched the surface, quite honestly.
Yeah.
A lot of the things. I mean, there's just so much else about past lives that we could absolutely talk about, or anything else too. So.
And I must say, you've done readings for me and all of that. And one thing that you told me that I didn't believe at first when I did the year thing, but you said you're gonna write your book, and that's gonna open to write more books. And I thought, I don't think I'm gonna write another one. But yesterday, to be honest, when I grabbed for the first time in my hand, I read, and then I said, there's a lot of things that was not said in there that I still want to. And you were right. It opened up for me to write more about other things. So,
well, good. I'm glad that you are opening
for being
up
right
to that.
Again.
Well, whenever people come up to me, and a lot of times I don't ever remember any of the things, the words that come out of my mouth. They're like, you were so right. And I'm like, I'm sorry, and you're welcome. I don't know ever what the outcome was, but you know
how I met you, how I found your name. Luke's therapist said, "Oh, I go to this lady, and she's been right 100% of the time." Oh. And then I was like, "Give me her card," and then she gave me her card.
Awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Yes.
All right. Well, so what would you say to somebody that is scared of doing past life regression, so we can close the section?
Okay. just to be gentle with yourself, but also to be open. And if you're scared of seeing, any horrible past lives, I'm sure that you all have done it. I'm sure that you've all have had horrible past lives. So once you accept that and just face it, then it's not nearly as scary once you actually do it.
True story. I can back you up on that. All right.
Well, it was so great to see you again, Richard.
It was great to see you too. And I'll be calling you soon for
okay.
More
Awesome. All right. You have a good rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Punkaste.
Namaste.